Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for tuning in for today's session. Today, we'll be going over the latest and greatest as what was released during our February release, specifically when it relates to indoor mapping. So thanks again for joining today. So to get started, for those who don't know me, I'm Elizabeth from the Outbound Product Management team. I'm based out of the Lille office in France. I joined ServiceNow through an acquisition indoor mapping company back in 2021. And today I am joined by Mederic, who is a director of outbound product management here at ServiceNow. He was formerly the CEO of Mapwise, the company that was acquired back in 2021. We are both located in the same office and continue to work on the indoor mapping capabilities that are now available in WSD. So before getting started, I do want to show the safe harbor notice. Right now, everything that Mederic will demonstrate and speak about today is actually being released and can be accessed in your instances. However, if there are questions through the chat that allude to any of the roadmap items, or we do have to mention something that is not yet in the product, we just do want to keep this safe harbor notice for everyone to be aware of this. This webinar session is part of a Live on ServiceNow event. We've had quite a few of these events. We have recently had one a couple of weeks ago based on the February release, so everything that was released, excluding indoor mapping. So during this session, we went over some of the net new applications and net new capabilities, lease administration, maintenance management, all those good things can be found during these sessions. So these sessions here, you can use the QR code to be able to access and sign up to the future events, or you can also go in and look at the recording of the past events. So a few housekeeping rules before we get started, before we go into Medevic's presentation today. By default, you are set to mute. We do please ask you to stay on mute to avoid any background noises during this session. However, if you do have any questions, we do really ask you to go into the chat feature here on Zoom to be able to ask any question. We prefer you to use chat rather than the Q&A section, rather than the chat function, just so that we can keep track and know which messages are coming in and make sure we get to answer all of those questions. And when you do submit a Q&A question, feel free to introduce yourself. We want to know who you are, which organization you're coming from, what stage are you at with your implementation, anything you'd like to share. This will help us give you a bigger detail on the answer that you're looking for. Again, this session is going to be recorded. It's going to be shared out to the community forum. If you miss any items, if you'd like to watch some of the items, you'll be able to get that directly from the recording that will be published later on this week. Again, if you're watching this on recording, you've missed the best parts, you've missed the best music coming into this session, you missed all the live interactions, so do sign up for the future events that will be happening. And finally, after this session, we're going to ask you to fill out a very brief survey, just so that we can understand how we've done for this session, how we can be better for our future sessions, and have we actually met the expectations you had come into this session today. So without further ado, let's go into the demonstration today. Mederic will be starting by giving a demonstration of what has changed for the employee, so the employee experience through the employee portal, and he will then go into some more detailed information into the configuration in the backend using Map Studio and the instance level configuration. So over to you, Mederic, if you'd like to share your screen, and we can get started.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. Do you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Yeah. Perfect, thank you. So my presentation will be a combination of demos and slides, because there are some very complex features that can be better explained with a slide deck. So I will start with the features for end users, i.e. employees. So we will start from the employee portal, from the workplace part of the employee portal. And I'm going to start with a feature called URL. So basically, we have a screen called the location directory. I guess you're familiar with the location directory. That's a central place to use the wayfinding feature. So you can scroll the campus list, or you can use a map view of the campus list to access a campus. So let's say this campus, which is the MER campus. The feature we added is basically the possibility to share a position on a map. Before showing the feature, I'd like to add that this feature is only for internal usage. So as an employee, you can share a URL to a location in a building, but you can share it only with someone else from the company, another employee, because the access to the map is restricted to only to authenticated users. So let's take an example here. So here we have a meeting room, this meeting room here. So I can see the details of the meeting room. Usually I access the details if I want to raise an issue, for instance, or if I want to start a wayfinding scenario from point A to point B to have the shortest direction. And here you have 3 points. Just click on the points and a new menu appears, and you have the copy URL feature. So basically you just have to click on it, and you have in the clipboard an URL to that location. So we'll start another tab, and here is the URL. So this is a private instance, but could be yours. And you have full details here. So I can just click on it. And the recipient, so you can send it using a team message or an email or you name it. And you directly access the right campus, the building, floor, and place. So that's a very useful feature when you want to share a position or the position of a place within a building. But remember, this feature works only within your organization, because if you are not authenticated, you can't access this screen. So this is the first employee-oriented feature for indoor mapping. Actually, we have another one called the pattern. That feature is part of our work to improve the accessibility of the mapping part of WSD. So let's go back to the workplace screen. And this feature can be used from the reservation model. So here we have the map. So the default view, so you can see the building, but here we have another layer on top of the building map. We have available resources. So you can see in green resources that are available. And maybe I could possibly book this one. So here we are. So I go back to reservation, the map view, and this one is not available anymore since I've just, I reserved it. And I can see that available resources are displayed in green and non-available resources are displayed in red. The problem is some people might have maybe there are colorblind people, and if you are colorblind people, you might not be able to make the difference between the green and the red color. So we introduced a new feature called the pattern, and you can just there is a switch at the bottom of the map here, and when you click on it, we change the way we displayed availability. So instead of a green color or a red color, we have patterns. So you can see here the patterns and the legend. So if you change the switch, it changes the legend too. And we apply patterns instead of colors. this pattern can be changed. So we offer a default pattern, and there is a possibility, if you want to have your very own patterns, it's possible to upload your own patterns. There is an admin field to do that, and it's possible to upload your own pattern, but that's the default pattern we offer. And so it's either green and red for the colors, and those patterns for as alternative for colorblind people. So those were the two main features for end users, but we have a lot of new features for admins. So I propose to go to the admin part of the presentation. As you know, we have the main part when you're an administrator, a WSD administrator. When it comes to indoor mapping, the main part is the studio. So let's go to the studio. Remember, the studio is the place where you can manage the entire life cycle of your indoor maps. So when you want to create a new campus, you go to the studio. When you want to disable a place or add a meeting room or merge two meeting rooms or remove a desk, you go to the studio. That's the place to manage your campuses. 90% of the tasks are indoor mapping related tasks are done here in the studio. So let's go to demo campus to start to see the new features. So we received feedback from our customers about the productivity, and especially the productivity when it comes to wayfinding and direction management. So in the November release, we already improved the way we the features we offer to manage corridors and in the wayfinding feature. So I will show you that. So can go to the directions menu, and in the direction menu, you can manage directions here. In the November release, we already add a very cool feature, which is the possibility to duplicate, literally copy-paste the direction from one floor to another floor, because it's usual to have very, very similar floors. So instead of redrawing the graph on every floor, you were entitled to just select one floor level and duplicate, copy-paste the directions from, let's say, the ground floor to the first floor. And that's a very useful feature. And we decided it might be interesting to do that from one floor to several floors. So we extended the feature released in the November release to add the possibility to duplicate one directions from one floor to 5, 6, or unlimited number of floors in the same building. So it's easy to use. There is one more menu item here. So you have a copy directions entry. So just click on it. And this time you have the possibility to select the source. So if you want to duplicate building A floor 1, and you can then duplicate that the direction, so the graph of floor 1 to, let's say, floor 2, floor 3, and floor 4. Then you just have to push the copy direction button, and that's it. So productivity-wise, it's I think that's very useful, because if you have, let's say, a 10-floor building, and with very, very similar floors, just start by drawing the graph for one floor, then duplicate it in one click, and then you just have to adjust. Maybe you might have to adjust other floors, but you have the foundation, which is probably the same if you have very similar floors. So it's a very useful feature, especially when you have a lot of floors and when those floors are very, very similar. So that's the first improvement we did in the direction mode. There is another one And as you know, we have different kind of directions. So it's possible to create your own direction modes. Usually you have two, one for which is the default mode, and it's usual to have another mode called the accessible mode. So we use it generally to isolate, to remove parts of the buildings that are not suitable for wheelchair or things like that. But it's possible to have more modes. You can have one mode for bikes or you name it. And sometimes it's complicated to understand what part of the graph is available for accessible in accessible mode or what part is not available. So we change the way we display that. So now we have a legend here, and it's possible to select a direction mode. And when you have, let's say, this corridor is not suitable for a wheelchair, so we can decide to change it. So I remove this mode here, and the color we change. So when I select, if I go back to the default mode, I see it's this segment is suitable, but in accessible mode, it's not. And in all mode, it depends. So here we have an example, and you can see immediately if a segment is suitable depending on the direction mode you use. So we that was for those two improvements were dedicated to the direction mode, so you can duplicate one floor directions to many floors in just one click, and then you can see if a segment is suitable or not, depending on the direction mode. Those features are really optimized for productivity, because we know we have customers who have a lot of buildings with a lot of floors, and sometimes it takes time to do repetitive tasks, and that's the reason why we added those features. So I just want to add it before I leave. Yeah, so that's it. The next feature is related to the campus. Once again, we want to help our customers to manage their campus and the entire life cycle of a campus. And in a life cycle, I mean, sometimes you have to add a new building. So let's go back to a campus. So that's a campus view. So you can see here we have a campus, and that campus has two buildings. It has two buildings, and we might be interested to add one more building. So let's do that very quickly. So add a new building. Here we are. And I'm going to add my own building here. So I save my new building. So that building is isolated from other buildings, but I did that on purpose. That's what I want to demonstrate. So here we have a new building. Let's add a floor very quickly. Upload a file. So here we have a problem, because we have three buildings, and you can see that this the campus boundary, this building is outside, the third building is outside of the campus boundary. And the problem, you will have many issues if it stays this way. So you need to extend or to redraw the boundary of the campus to include that building. So it's a problem, and it's very common to have that kind of issue. So I will reload my screen, and it's magic. Thanks to this new feature, we are able to extend the boundary of the campus, and we do that automatically. So if you forget to extend it, we do it. And once again, it's a productivity feature, and you don't have to think about it when you add a building. When you reload the campus, the boundary of the campus is automatically extended. So that's a new feature of the February release. So I just want to remove it. Go to the campus list. Yeah. And that's it. You can see when I remove the building, the boundary of the campus changes. Again, it works in both ways. So the next part of the presentation is based on slides because those features are more complex. So I will stop showing my screen and re-showing again. Do you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Yep. So the next feature, I might be back to my studio after that, but I prefer to use slides. We also extended, improved the way we display CAD files. We know CAD files are most of the time they are complex, and you want to use full screen to display the CAD files. So we added the full screen preview of CAD files, and we also extended the preview feature, so it's possible to preview what will be imported before you actually do it. So there is a switch to have a full view of the screen. The ability to simulate what will be done, and here there is a bar. You can you can take this bar to the left or to the right to resize the panel your way. In addition of the CAD import, so we change the way we display CAD files, and you have more options to display them and to simulate what will be done after the import. And we also added new warnings because we know sometimes customers, they experience issues with CAD files, and they struggle to understand why they had issues with CAD files. So now we provide a lot of a lot of details and warnings about the CAD file. So if some layers are not configured, for instance, we can display it. So this way, it's easier to understand what is wrong in the import process. Another very important feature is the ability to import CAD properties. As you may know, CAD file contains shapes and lines, walls, desks, meeting rooms, but those elements, sometimes they have properties. And until now, we were unable to extract and process those properties. And not anymore, since the February's, we released a new feature to take advantage of those properties embedded within CAD elements. So basically, it works very, the way it works is simple. We can extract those CAD properties and we store them in a table. And then you just have to populate a binding table, and we are able to extract the data from the CAD file to put the data. We extract them from the CAD file, and we are able, according to that binding file table, we are able to populate WSD fields right from the data in the property list of the CAD file. So your CAD file has properties. Those properties are extracted from the CAD file. They are stored into a temporary table, a transient table. And then if you are interested to retrieve some of them, might be a surface or might be, you name it, any kind of property, it's possible then to populate properties from your space WSD space table with those data coming from the CAD file. But to do so, you need to tell the system which property you're interested in and what is the recipient, what is in the WSD space, what property of the space must be populated with the property extracted from the CAD file. So it's a little bit complex, but it's very powerful, since it means you can directly just, when you do the synchronization, you can extract the data from the CAD file within a form in the CAD file and then populate properties of your WSD spaces. Another feature, I think it's an important one. That's the ability to extract a campus. So you can extract data from indoor mapping, and we call that snapshots. And possibly you can extract them as files. So it's a way to do a backup of a campus, for instance. And then of course, you are entitled to re-import them when you're interested to do it. And the purpose of this feature, the main purpose, of course, it's the ability to do backup and restore of data, of your campus data. But I think the main interest of this feature is the ability to extract a campus from, let's say, your pre-production environment and to move that campus from one environment, let's say the pre-production environment, to your production environment. That's a very easy way to move campuses from one environment to another. And it works very, very easily. You just have to generate it. And I used a screenshot here because it takes time to generate the file. So it's not very easy to do that in a demo. So you ask for a backup, a snapshot called snapshot. And when ready, you have the possibility to download the file and then to re-upload it on the same platform or another platform, let's say your production environment. So that feature is called Snapshot, and it was already possible to do that. And actually, we have an article on the community website explaining how to do that. But since we have the snapshot, it's been very, very easy. It's easier to do it this way using the snapshot. We also added new roles because we had and we still have a role to give the permission to use the studio, and now we have a limited map editor role. The purpose of this role is to grant someone the ability to access some campuses, but not others. So it's a way to It's a more it's a more precise. It's a way to give someone the permission to access campuses as an admin, but it's limited. You can limit that to some campuses, but not others. Another feature of the Fabrities is the support of an indoor positioning technology called Indoor Atlas. Indoor Atlas, we already supported Indoor Atlas, but it was only with Mapping. And now we also support Indoor Atlas with Indoor Mapping. So Indoor Atlas is a technology based on some hardware you can deploy in your premises. This technology is provided by a partner. ServiceNow has a partnership with Indoor Atlas. And it's possible if you use the mobile application, and if you have, you need a Tokyo family release instance. So if you have a Tokyo instance, and if you use the mobile application, it's possible to use Indoor Atlas. And then if you have Indoor Atlas, you have a blue dot, and an accurate blue dot. And, indoor positioning doesn't work, GPS doesn't work within buildings. And the purpose of Indoor Atlas is to give you an accurate blue dot, especially if you have several floors within a building. Thanks to Indoor Atlas, it's possible to have an accurate blue dot. But remember, this works only with the mobile app, and you need the Tokyo family release to have a full usage of Indoor Atlas with Indoor Mapping. Technically, it's not possible to use the blue dot technology with your web browser, for instance, because it requires a mobile application. So it's only for mobile users using a Tokyo family release. And of course, you need you have to sign a contract with Indoor Atlas and deploy their technology before being able to take advantage of the blue dot. The last feature of the Fabrities, and that's the last but not the least, that's the refactoring of the synchronization between Indoor Mapping and WSD. Until now, we had a feature, a set of features, one called Get Building, and if you're familiar with Indoor Mapping, first you have to create your building in the studio, and then you have an instruction called Get Building, and that instruction, Get Building, that feature, allows you to import the building into WSD, and it creates a binding between the data from the Indoor Mapping port and your spaces in WSD. That feature was called Get Building, and we also had a set of rules, business rules, to do the synchronization after the Get Building is done. That way, we had technical issues, and several customers asked us to improve the way we do the synchronization between Indoor Mapping and WSD. So remember, you have spaces in WSD, and you have locations and floors, building floors, and places in Indoor Mapping. And the purpose of this processing of this feature is to have a consistent set of data across Indoor Mapping and WSD. So we completely changed the way we do that. So that's maybe the most important part of the presentation, because that's a major improvement for WSD and Indoor Mapping. So the way it works is quite simple. The way it works is one way, meaning we take the data from Indoor Mapping, and we do the synchronization with WSD. If we want to take a short example, we can create a new campus, for instance. So here's an example, a new campus. Then we create a new building within this campus. Then you have to create a floor. There are different ways depending on the kind of data you have. Usually customers have CAD files, so you have to import a CAD file or a PNG file. Then you add places. Usually places are either meeting rooms or desk. Sometimes you also have printers or things like that. Then you create your directions and connectors to manage elevators and stairs. And you create a view. That's the standard way when you create a new campus with a new building. 5 steps, and that's it. Once this is done, you have a new building in Indoor Mapping, but that building still has to be created and synchronized with WSD. And that's the purpose of this feature. So we have a new app here called Indoor Map WSD synchronizations. And the purpose of this map is to manage the consistency of the data between Indoor Mapping and WSD. So you go to the new application, and you have to create a synchronization process. So you do that by just clicking on the new button. You select the campus. Here we have a case because it's a new campus with a new building. The campus does not exist yet on the WSD side. So the synchronization in that case consists in creating the new spaces and buildings, but on the WSD side, based on what you did on the Indoor Mapping studio side. So we create a new synchronization, and then we will navigate in the data. So we start with the campus, and here you can see the purpose of this tool is to give you a full control of what is done when you do the synchronization. So here, every time you have a screen, this application suggests some operations. So here, the operation is quite simple. It's a create because the building, the campus of the building, they do not exist on the WSD side. So they have to be created. But if you disagree with the suggested operation, it's of course possible to change that and to choose your way. So there are other options. Could be ignore, for instance, if you don't want to create it. And we will see all those other options after that. And you click next. So the campus was detected, and it's a new one. So it suggests creation. It works the same for the floors and buildings, because those floors they do not exist in WSD, so they have to be created. So you can see here the data from the Indoor Mapping side. So we have a campus called Lille, another one, Lille Test Campus, a floor, and you can see it does not exist in WSD, and we can create it. That's the purpose of the script, and so on. So then comes the spaces here. So spaces are meeting rooms, desks, and so on. And once again, there are suggestions. And here the suggestion is, of course, to create a new space, because that space does not exist in WSD. And then you have you have several screens. For every operation, you can change. You're not obliged to accept the suggested operation. It's up to you to accept it or to reject it. And then you have a list of the operations, and you can click on the last button to start the synchronization. So, and it's an asynchronous process, and you can only have one at a time. So if you want to run another synchronization process, you have to wait the previous be finished. This tool totally changes the way we do the synchronization between indoor mapping and WSD. Until now, sometimes it was unclear, and we had the CAD building operation was easy to understand, but the business rules applied after the CAD building when you, let's say, you change the name of a room in the studio, and you wanted to propagate the change of the name to WSD. Sometimes it was complicated to understand how the synchronization worked. With that tool, you decide when you do the synchronization, meaning if you never run that tool, you will have inconsistencies because maybe some persons will change data on the content in the studio, and you have to run that tool to synchronize WSD and the studio. So you decide when you do that instead of rules that might be unclear. So you decide when you run it, and you decide every operation. So you can change every operation if you're interested to change the suggested behavior. You can do it place by place. Of course, most of the time you accept 99 or 100% of the suggestions, but it's up to you if you want to apply some specific rules to some specific floors, for instance. It's up to you, and you are in charge of that. So you decide when you run it, and you decide what is done very, very accurately on a operation by operation base. Then the final step is, of course, to submit to the synchronization. Sorry, my slide was not currently synchronized. So that tool is probably the most important part of the February's for indoor mapping. And that's a tool for every customer using indoor mapping. Need that tool, need to understand that tool. It's a major change on the way we handle the data synchronization between indoor mapping and WSD. And if you don't use it, you have to understand the default behavior change, the rules, the business rules, they don't work anymore. And you have to use that tool instead of the previous get building and business rules that was used. So this is a very important part of the February's, and it's important to understand how it works, and to understand the different suggestions and how to take advantage of that. It's a powerful tool because you decide when and how the synchronization is done. Yep. Elizabeth, I think it's.
Yeah, if you could stay on that slide. Thank you very much, Mederic. I'll go ahead and don't worry, I'll go ahead and share. Thank you very much, Mederic, for doing that great overview for indoor mapping in February. I just wanted to share some content. So everything that Mederic mentioned and more. So what I was mentioning at the start of the session, everything that was released in February. So the new applications that were mentioned during the last webinar, plus what Mederic mentioned today with indoor mapping, is available via a blog on the community. So this is the first link of the blog. Also, important to know that on our community site, we also have a lot of indoor mapping content. So whatever the version you are on, what family release you're on, what version of WSD you're on, you'll be able to find content out there. And if you don't find any content, or if you need a specific help with a question, feel free to reach out to any of us. Would be more than happy to help you with that. I'd like also to mention that our next webinar for the Live on ServiceNow series will be regarding health and safety. So how to understand how to have a great implementation. So we'll be going over that with quite a few colleagues. So I would really recommend you join that session if you are interested in health and safety, which is one of the latest apps that was released in February. Following this, so thanks again, Medewick, for this presentation. I just wanted to see if we have the time to go over if there's any Q&A questions, if there's anyone that posted a pressing question. Does anyone have some questions on what Medewick presented today? Feel free, and we'll give you a few minutes to type something into the Q&A section. And if not, please feel free to reach out when you do have a question. So I don't see any questions on my end. I don't know if Medewick, if you see anything, or if there's anything we need to highlight before we end this session. If not, thank you again for joining this session. And again, please reach out if you do have any question. More than welcome to answer that, so we can help you. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.